passe l'artiste. Super, encore un but sensationnel. That's a brilliant bit of follow-up play by Mahe. Oh my goodness me, what a shot.
Sagosen setter det hen! Han setter den! De er i semifinale igjen!
After 4 days of the Women's EHF Euro 2022, 7 teams have booked their spot in the main round. We look back at the teams and players that have impressed us most, and we speak to Swedish playmaker Jenny Carlson about Sweden's impressive start to the championship, IBD awareness with her Instagram account Athlete with Stoma, and how life has changed for her on and off the court in the last few years, all on today's Uninformed Handball Hour. Chris O'Reilly here with you, and Alex Kulash.
Hey, Chris.
Brian Campion.
Hello, Alex. Hello, Chris.
2 rounds of the preliminary round finished. Another couple of days with a couple of big surprises and a few very impressive performances. I think today we're going to look at some of the teams and players that have impressed us most in the championship so far before we go into the chat with Jenny. And Alex, you're still watching from the comfort of home in Copenhagen with the best internet connection of all, so maybe it's a safe bet for you to get started here.
Okay, I'll get started, and that means I can pick an easy one, and that is clearly Sweden. I know we'll get into it a little bit more with Jenny, but for me, they've been incredibly impressive in this championship. And I mentioned before that I wanted to see Yamina Roberts kind of step up and take that next step as a superstar leader of this team. And that's exactly what she did in that game against Slovenia. So Sweden came out very comfortably 33-22 against the hosts, a Slovenian team that we're all so impressed with. But Sweden dispatched them. Yamina Roberts got 9 goals, 3 assists and 4 steals, which is an insane performance. And I just felt like she single-handedly took apart the host Slovenia and kind of drained the energy in that arena. How did that feel, Chris?
Well, I think she did exactly that, but her performance was so electrifying that it didn't really matter what it did to the 3,500 people or so that were in there, because she was phenomenal. And like you said, those steals though, and we spoke about Nora Merck describing Henny Reistad as a gazelle, but Yamina Roberts was a true gazelle in defense in particular. The way she just sprung out over and over again, it must have been a really disheartening and almost a bit of a terrifying thing for Slovenia in attack. It really stunted them in that second half. Bear in mind though, that first half was really excellent handball from both teams. Like Slovenia, it looked like, maybe they have found that consistency at last. Maybe they are going to repeat these good performances day in, day out. And I think in the first half they did everything as well as they could. Amra Panzic was amazing in goal, but yeah, it was the Yamina Roberts show in defence, and all that also without a left-hander in the backcourt after Nina Dano had her lower leg fracture in the first half. The way they played in attack was beautiful. There's so much speed in there. They've shifted the focus away from the line players as well, which was a real focus for them the last couple of years. Sweden just looking very, very good. And whatever Thomas Axner has in this grand plan of having 9 backcourt players, it seems to be coming to fruition. What do you think, Brian?
So you're both going for Sweden as your...
Sweden is my hot team in the tournament so far. I think Chris gave some really good reasons. Who else impressed you, Brian?
Well, I love to give lists instead of saying one team. So if you're asking me to give one, I'm going to give you 3. And I'll give you... No, I think off the top of my head, when you said that first to me off air, I thought, it has to be Montenegro. It could have so easily went the other way with Montenegro, but from what I've heard and what we've seen on TV as well, it looks like they're really on fire down there. And Jaukovic scored 9 earlier today, which is just absolutely incredible. And I've said it many times before that she needed a really big tournament, and it looks like this is really it. delighted for them because that's just a great for the tournament overall as well. I think Poland had the probably biggest shock result of the whole event, beating Spain today, and I think Croatia best bounce back will be my 3.
I like that. And it quite literally is the power of the Montenegrin fans, because the volume of the crowd today in their victory against Germany reached 122 decibels. And that is...
I think that's medically unsafe, isn't it?
Let me find some things to compare 120 decibels. So that sounds like a rock concert, a thunderclap, or having a chainsaw beside your head.
Wow.
There you go.
Other equivalents, a gunshot, a loud alarm or silence, an aircraft taking off was the consistent level of noise the Montenegrin fans were making in that game. So that's pretty impressive, and it obviously powered them to a pretty big win against Germany. A German team I was worried about. They didn't impress me in the first game. Thought they got lucky. And they, again, it was just too individual for Germany. So the final score is 29 to Montenegro to Germany's 25. And it was very simple for Montenegro in the end. Xenia Spitz getting sent off for Germany made a big difference, I think, as well. She kind of glues things together for that German team. She's the one that makes the good decisions in attack. And without her, it's all a bit too individual with Greisels and Bulk. Bulk, who had a fantastic game, I think scored 7 goals, but it's all just too individual.
Yeah, 7 from 14 shots, though, which is a little bit costly. It's just... and also they had a decent goalkeeper performance. Again, Katharina Filter had a good game, I think in the mid-30% save rate, but it felt like Montenegro had it kind of in their grasp the whole time. Like they always held on to that like 2, 3, 4 goal lead throughout the game. They looked kind of comfortable. They were riding in the wave of the home advantage. And then another aspect of this that has come up is that Jovanka Radicevic has confirmed that she's going to retire after this championship. So this is the final farewell tour for her and all of her old places playing. So it's really fantastic. And the energy she exudes, the energy everyone exudes on that team, it's nuts. It is really it must be really difficult to deal with as an opposing player.
It's going to be very strange the next year. We won't have Jovanka Radicevic, and then we won't also have Kristina Niagu. So it really is 2 people who exemplify the EHF Euro will no longer be there. So that's going to be quite an emotional last day wherever they leave the tournament.
You guys have not left me many teams to choose from in terms of who has impressed, but 2 teams that have picked up the most comfortable victory so far have been in your group, where you are in Skopje, Brian, Netherlands and France. The Netherlands getting double scores over North Macedonia today, and France absolutely hammering Romania 35-21. I would see that as very impressive, particularly given that France weren't really tested in a way, but managed to rack up a higher score against Romania. But you weren't impressed with what you saw in total, or is it more the opposition that didn't impress you?
I don't know what France were thinking, to be honest. I mean, this isn't entertaining at all. This is just like this. Don't be that good so early in the tournament. I mean, like, come on, like people can barely watch it in the hall. They're like, oh, okay, we know you're amazing. I mean, it was just like leave it till the end of the tournament, will you? Like, at least make the game a little bit close. Like, keep five goal cushion or something would be nice. But no, but it's their backcourt is just like ridiculously good. Like how they move and how they're so good at 1-against-1, and then Fopa on the line is just, I mean, there was certain times the Romanian players were trying to stop her and she would just turn and you could do nothing about it. So she's just absolutely incredible. But and then the players on the bench as well, to bring someone like Canor who comes on, who must be probably the best person coming onto the ball at speed in the world. Like, that's her bread and butter. Just give her the ball, comes on, and just, she doesn't even wait sometimes till she gets to the top of her jump, just launches it, and it catches the keeper so often by surprise. So they're starting backward, and then they've those people like that coming off the bench. It's just really, really incredible. And Cleopatra Dalot is having an unbelievable tournament, and that was a big question mark we had at the beginning of the tournament. Is she going to be able to do it on her own? And she is. And
her percentage dropped. Come on, Brian. A whole 39%. That's shocking. That's very poor. She actually got outplayed by her backup goalkeeper, Florian Andre, with 47%. So a lot of questions answered from the French goalkeeper so far, at least.
I think a hint to that may be their goalkeeper coach, Amandine Lenoir.
That's, if they get really desperate, they can
just in case. Yeah, they're looking good, and that is going to be an exciting group final.
One thing that I also picked up in that France-Romania game, which I think will be important later in the tournament, and Romania in the second half came out and started playing 7-on-6 to try to get back into the game. There were 6 goals down. They needed to get back in the game. France played a 5-1 defense against that 7-on-6. This is something that we've seen Barca and Spain do on the men's side that I've seen. But of course they have Enzo as that number 1 player out in front of that defense. And they made a mockery of Romania in those 5 minutes that they were trying to play 7-on-6 versus that 5-1 defense. Like, it was as if Romania were playing 7-on-6 for the first time. I don't believe that. I don't believe that at this level you would just throw on a 7-on-6 like that, but it felt like literally them trying to figure it out for the first time. They had no idea what to do. And I say that's important because Denmark are, that's a go-to move for them. And we saw Norway as well go to 7-on-6 a little bit. So I feel like France have trained for that and are preparing for a game against those top teams and have that counter where if they come against 7-6, they're just actually going to destroy the other team with that.
It's really interesting because 7 versus 6 was kind of seen as a solution against 5-1 defense, and you pin 2 line players in there, and then you're going to force the opposing defense back to a 6-0. But France are turning the tables completely here and saying, you know what, if you want to move the ball that slowly, then actually we have the players who can cover the entire court, and we've got Estelle and Ziminko in the middle to make your life difficult. So yeah, that's a nice way to turn it all around. And so it will give some coaches some headaches, that's for sure.
I think probably without that really dynamic number 1 at the top, that whole thing doesn't work. You need to have someone like Estelle and Zimenko up there, don't you, really, for that to work?
I think I think the whole team, because also if you take Estelle and Ziminko out, who say she gets beaten 1-against-1, then it's 7 against 5 then, and you're going to have definitely space into the lines. Maybe we'll see if they're facing a more sophisticated 7v6 that they'll just sacrifice the balls going to one of the wings or something like that, and pack the defense in a little more in the center. So yeah, that'll be interesting to see against the Dutch as well, if it happens.
If they play, they will definitely play each other.
No, they'll definitely play each other. But if 7v6 happens there, but I think Perry Johannesson probably doesn't fancy getting caught by any traps. Yeah, that'll be a good game. I'm looking forward to that one. You're going to have 2 very good games, at least, Brian, on the final day in Skopje. Do you see any way that North Macedonia could give Romania trouble?
No, I don't. Moving on.
Brian's face, the minute that you started asking that question.
One of the least surprising performances of the tournament so far was how Hungarian that performance was against Croatia. And I don't think you boys saw any of that game at all, but it was almost like, I actually think the score maybe looked quite good for how bad Hungary played. And it was a late flurry at the end, really. Croatia were home and dry, and Hungary kind of had a bit of a late flurry at the end. Yeah, Katrin Kloiber, just, I mean, it was almost like every shot she missed, her confidence dropped by 20%, and then she was missing penalties.
0 from 6,
0
right?
from 6.
Yeah.
Oof.
And she missed a penalty and everything, and it was just, and she threw the penalties way over the bar, and it was just like, I don't know. It's almost like when times get tough, they really do seem to wilt, and it's. I was even mentioned in the commentary as well that that's one of their character traits. So it's everyone's catching on to it now these days. But it was almost sad, because it was like, you do see they have a lot of young, really talented players who've performed really well at underage World and European Championships. Someone like Petra Vamos, for example, who I remember I worked at under 18s a few years ago, and she was absolutely tearing it up, and it can never really seem to translate it then to the senior level. And Croatia looked great, actually. I was very surprised by them, because I think everyone likes to think that the last Euro was a fluke, but they did look quite pretty impressive. And Valentina Blažević was great, actually. I think she's probably one of the most underrated players in that Croatian side. And you remember her in the final last time out, how she was kind of, the bronze medal match. The bronze medal match last time out, she was quite central to that win on that day. So she's a bit of an unsung hero, I think, in that Croatian team.
Yeah, 9 goals in that. And 9 goals in a 21-18 win is huge.
5 assists as well. So she is responsible for 14 of Croatia's 21 goals. That's has to be right up there in records of most goal contributions. And of course, you have Teja Pivic, who caught another ball from the wing to get this tournament really started. You know, it's not a tournament before a catch from Teja Pivic.
She's become more sassy, which is fantastic. Just like even more disdain for players daring to throw the ball at her goal.
Yeah.
It's 13 saves, 45%, amazing.
She's genuinely very entertaining to watch, and almost so entertaining because she doesn't want to be entertaining, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Like, she'll do something ridiculous and she just kind of has this kind of non-expression on her face, telling everyone to calm down. And it's just kind of...
It's like, don't look at me.
Don't look at me. But then everyone looks at you because you're just being so cool about it. It's just like, come on, you're just the most ridiculous thing ever. And they're telling everyone to calm down. I absolutely love it. And yeah, I think at the last Euro, she was kind of a bit hesitant about giving interviews in English and that kind of stuff. But since then, I think her English has improved a lot. So she was grabbing the mic of Marcia Menino down courtside to give a quick interview after the game.
Still with Alba Fehérvár in Hungary. I don't know why a team hasn't picked her up in the meantime, but that's a topic for another day.
Yeah. So any other surprising or unsurprising things you want to touch on?
I've been surprised that Spain have been so bad. And you have to give it up to Poland for an incredible win. First win at the Euros for them. A big comeback, being 20-16 down with 10 minutes to go and turning that around to 22-20 up. And the game finished 22-21 to Poland. But it's really Spain just not looking good in attack at all. And it's all just Alexandrian. It's all just Cabral in attack for Spain, who has to take responsibility. They're just not able to break through or do anything, and that's been just been a bit disappointing. Great for Poland, though.
We wondered there if the goalkeeping issue with Silvia Navarro, who since the last time we recorded, it's confirmed that she has an ACL injury. If that was maybe like a contributing factor, maybe emotionally was, but in the goalkeeper department, Mercedes Castellanos came on and was almost at 50% saving in the crucial time when they went 4 goals up. So you can't blame that.
But then she got injured as well, so maybe that impacted them again.
But these goalkeeper injuries. But I just on that, I mean, Poland were pretty decent at the World Championship last year, but in a Euro context, this victory is their first win in 14 Euro matches. So they went 13 matches at this championship without picking up a victory, and to be able to do it in that manner with a 6-goal run in the last 10 minutes, it really says a lot. And Kinga Ashruk, as we talked about it, pre-championship, going back to Podgorica, the place where she won the Champions League, and performing like that. You could see how much it meant to her after the game. She was really nice to see. They've been waiting a long time for this, Poland, so good to see it. And they're in with the chance of making the main round now. Alex, you said it's a bit of a surprise, but you actually did predict them to lose all of their matches, right, Spain?
I did, yeah. So, but I think not everyone did. I think not
everyone did. No, they did not.
And another, Poland are also, just last point on them. They're so weird because they have such a good defense. They have potentially the best fast break out of any team, excluding Norway and France. And their set attack still sucks. They still only scored 22 goals in this game. Against Germany, they scored about 75% of their goals on the fast break or second wave. I think they scored a few more in a set attack against Spain, but it's super static. It doesn't work. But when they're at speed, when they're running, they're unstoppable. So it's this weird juxtaposition.
It is. And on that word, shall we go into our interview? Our interview for today's podcast is with Jenny Carlson, the starting Swedish playmaker at this championship. Jenny only came into the Swedish national team last year for the first time and has had a long road to the Swedish team due basically to the fact that she has ulcerative colitis, something she was diagnosed with at the age of 18, and she had an emergency surgery in 2018 that constructed an ileostomy. If you don't know what that is, that's okay. I don't think too many people do, and it's something that Jenny is trying to fix, as she is doing a lot of work for awareness for IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, with her Instagram account Athlete with Stoma, and talking a lot about her living life as a handball player with a stoma. She spoke very openly with us about this earlier on today in a really interesting interview, as well as talking about Sweden's fantastic start to the championship and looking forward to the Scandinavian Derby on Tuesday. Jenny Carlson, the day after beating the host in Slovenia, 2 wins out of 2. It's a beautiful day here. Everything must feel pretty good.
Yeah, as you said, we have now 2 wins, and it was important for us. And now we're to the next round, and we know that we have one more really important game as well. But for now, it feels really good, and I think we played good handball also. So we just need to continue with that.
Particularly yesterday against Slovenia, they were set to give you a tough task. You saw what they did against Denmark. I'm sure they shut them down, but it seemed like you had a lot of control over the game, and in the second half in particular, the team really opened up.
Yes, the first half I think was actually a really good handball game. It was a good fight, but we had maybe a little bit more energy in the second half and just put it up a little bit higher. But it was a really nice atmosphere, and the crowd was really nice to play there. Now we know that it wasn't for us, but we can use that for our to get together as well.
I'm sure you've played in these atmospheres a lot in club handball, but internationally, because you came into the team last year, right? Mm-hmm. So just as things were getting out of Corona, you played in the Olympics with empty halls. So was this one of the first real experiences where you've had like a really proper kind of Balkan crowd against you with the national team?
We had before the World Championship in Serbia as well, and then there are also like the Balkan crowd. But we know that it's special in countries like this, and it's also what's fun with handball, that it's so different, the culture, and we have a lot of players here that have played those games, and I have now the last year done that as well. But it's always amazing when it's so many people, and we just get like the work we put in, and that we get something back for it. It's really nice.
It feels like the team has developed a lot over the last couple of years as well, particularly in the backcourt. It seems like a couple of years ago maybe there was a lot more focus on the line players, for example, because you have a great combination of pivots in there. But yesterday there's a lot of focus in the backcourt. You have so many backcourt players in the team, and it's rotating a lot as well.
Yes.
And even with the injury to Nina at right back, it seemed like everything worked pretty well with all right-handers in there.
Yes, especially with Emma that come in as a right-hander. She's really good in that position also, and I think we have really good back players and players overall that we know that we can trust in. When the one we have on the bench, we know that we trust them to come in, and I think we have a really good team. Like we can put in new when unfortunately we get an injury with Nina, then we know we can put in someone else. So I think we have a really good team on like every position. That's good for us. Yes.
I'll ask you a little bit about Denmark in a moment, but I want to go to a different topic and something that is very close to your heart in building awareness for IBD, something that you're living with, and it's been really interesting to follow your Instagram account in particular on that. And maybe, I guess it's best to come from your mouth exactly what you are dealing with and what you're living with on a daily basis.
Yeah, so I have a stoma only for the last 4 years because I have colitis ulcerosa. It's inflammation in the colon. So yeah, for the last 4 years I had the stoma, no, but I want to like raise awareness for it because I think not many people know what it is, and a lot of people are scared of it. Both the people that maybe will get it, but also people that don't know what it is. So I think I really want to have like that role model when I got it, that you can continue with your life. You can be physical active and like play handball that are really physical, and that it have worked really good for me. Yeah, so that's the main point why I do it, and to try to raise awareness for myself also, but also for the people that living with it, but also like people around, because not so many people knows what it's about.
And read recently you said you had your 4-year anniversary, and there was a really interesting quote in there saying, I didn't know what life was going to be like, or didn't know what was ahead of me, but life has been a lot better since then. And I guess that also counts for handball. But 4 years ago when you were going through this and this was happening, was handball anywhere on your mind? What did you think after all of this happened that handball had a role in your life?
Handball has like always been a big part of my life, and I think maybe that helped a little bit because then I had something to come back to. But I know that I know that it was unsure if I could play again, and the doctors and also like coaches were like a little bit like they didn't know, and it was hard to find a club after it because no one knew what it was about and how I would play handball with it again. But I was lucky to get a club, and it just developed a lot after that. And yeah, I had the illness for like 5 years before I got the stoma, and I was really sick for those years, up and downs. So I think like in the end I think I was ready for it because I've been so sick for so many times. So I think I was clear that it was happen. Of course, it's a lot of change in life in handball, but also like you are 23 when you get it, and you get a stoma on your belly, and yes, I think it's in the beginning it was hard. I was ready, but it's also different. But I think now when I know that I think now I understand how sick I actually was, and now I can do what I want, and so it's good now. Yeah.
And I see that you're also studying, right? And you are looking at the effects of stoma on training, which is something you're dealing with every day. Can you give us a bit of insight into that maybe, and how you maybe have to adapt your training to other people in the team or also daily life?
Actually, now I don't need to adapt so much because I think, of course, for me as an athlete from before the stoma, I have a little bit ahead of like a normal person, but so that has helped that I tried. I tried to, right when I woke up, maybe it's not the best, but I tried to do a sit-up, and I tried to do. Maybe I go a little ahead of myself sometimes. Maybe that's a problem with us as athletes, but in the beginning, of course, you need to have like to take time to just accept that also that you have had a big surgery. But now I don't have actually no kind of no struggle or nothing that stops me when it comes to working out. But that also comes from like take time and a process from it.
You said there as well at the beginning it was difficult to get a team to maybe to take a chance or to understand. You also you've come into the national team in the last year and a half. You also moved to Britannia earlier this year. Is that something that you actively try to sit down with people at the beginning and talk about it and say it's okay to talk about?
Yes. When I came to the new club, it was like the first training I said to everyone, because I don't think no one knew about it when I came to the new club. So I was like the first training, so no one would be like in the shower like, what is that? Yeah. So I have been open about it from the beginning, but it was also hard to find a club because I didn't know how it would be. I just trusted myself and my ability to do it, and like that I know that I want to play handball. So in the beginning it was hard to find a club, as you said, but also I think I maybe showed them that it was possible.
Was moving, because you were playing in Denmark for a few years before the move, was moving to the continent something you always had in mind?
To Brest? Yes.
To France or maybe another?
Yes, I have always actually wanted to play in France. Okay. I have no connection to France at all, but I always wanted to play there. So yes, I know that I wanted to play in a different country than Sweden, and when I came to Denmark, it was a really big goal for me also. But I knew that I also wanted to try something totally different, because Sweden and Denmark is quite close to each other, but culture and all that. But so, yeah, I wanted to try something new, to just find a different culture, like handball, but also like people and language and that. So, yeah, I always wanted to do that.
You said earlier on that you want to be a kind of role model as well for people who are going through this, through IBD. And when looking into it, it seems like there are a lot of people doing amazing things afterwards, and that's championed a lot in kind of these smaller groups, but not and trying to get rid of the stigma of it, but there's still not so much mainstream media attention. Were there any athletes or people that you looked to or that you found out about 4 years ago when you first had the operation?
I didn't know so many at that time. I think when I got the stoma, I also become more aware of other people, so I become also in a community for it. So I have heard a lot of stories when people have written to me, and I also write to them. So it's been like a big journey since I got it. But I think that's really nice to hear when people write and that they thank me for me being open, because they don't dare to be it. And I think, of course, I think everyone should decide if they want to be open about it or not. But I think when I have this possibility also with all the media, and I play handball in the national team, and not a lot of people can do that, or so I think I also when I want to raise awareness for it, I think this is also really good when I have this possibility as I have to do it.
Because I saw last year during the Olympics, there were these British organizations, for example, also posting about you and saying follow Jenny Carlson, she's our personal hero in that regard, and that must feel really beautiful.
Yes, it is, and it's really nice when it goes to different countries, of course, and so that is really nice to see that it's actually I do something, and so that is nice. But I also do it because I got the information from others, and they help me also. So yes, I think that's why I continue also.
Nice. And then back to what's on hand now.
Yes.
You got Denmark tomorrow, a nice Scandinavian derby. You've played in Denmark. A lot of the players either play together at club level or play against each other in the leagues.
Mm-hmm.
So no real surprises there. You've both seen what you've come up with in the last couple of days. Mm-hmm. So what will make the difference, do you think, tomorrow?
Oh, I think it will be a really hard fight tomorrow. And as you said, we are a lot of people that have played against each other, but also with each other. And I think it will be a really big fight, like physical fight also. But I think a lot of speed will be the end to it. So I hope we will have the biggest in the end. But I think the one that has the most in the end left in their legs.
That's it. That's been a lot of the talk before throughout the whole championship before the game against Slovenia for both teams. They were talking about using the speed. Slovenia managed to shut down Denmark's speed in that way and really control their own backcourt. They didn't manage it so well against you, but we saw what Denmark were capable of against Serbia then. How do you feel, without giving too much away, but what usually dictates which team can actually control the pace of the game and be the one doing the most running?
No, but I think it's almost the defense is really important to have the speed. You need to be good in defense and have really good goalkeepers to be able to use the speed. Otherwise, you're not going to get in the attack for that. So I think that's actually the the most important thing. That's the defense, because you're able to run then. And we know that also that is the first step to be able to run. But we also know that Denmark is good at it also. So, and as you said, they showed it yesterday and against Serbia that they really can run also. So, yeah.
And personally, do you like that kind of game? Both teams are just going to be running up and down, or do you like a bit more control in the backcourt?
No, I like when it's fast, and of course we need to do it under control. Otherwise, it's just going to be like some ping pong game. But no, I like when it's speed. Yes.
Jenny Carlson, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to Jenny for that. Really fascinating stuff. And I hope you learned something from that as well. And as we said, you can follow Athlete with Stoma on Instagram to learn more. And leads us nicely into the Group B final, the Scandinavian derby between Sweden and Denmark. Something I think most of us expected would be the group final, but in a very different circumstance to what we expected beforehand, because there's very important main round points on the line. Denmark, despite being so impressive against Serbia, could go into the main round with nothing.
It's crazy that they can go in with nothing, or they can potentially go in with 4 points if Serbia beats Slovenia in the other game, which I think is probably unlikely, but I think that's going to be tight anyway. Sweden have been super impressive. Denmark, in their game against Serbia, every single Danish outfield player scored. It's the first time that's happened in this tournament. I don't remember too many times that happening in history. But it was very impressive. I have no idea which way it's going to go, to be honest. So there you go.
It's hard to break it down in a way because, as Jenny said, whichever team will have the most left in the legs will win this. Of course, there's so many different factors, but both teams really have shown they're at their best when they're flowing in attack and counter-attacks. So whichever one can somehow manage to make that happen in defense as well. Really hard to predict. It's going to be, hopefully will be a cracking game. It could be the most entertaining and spectacle we'll have so far.
Yeah, I think the two big standout games for the 8th would be then obviously Slovenia, Serbia, Denmark, Sweden.
Both commentated by Chris O'Reilly on EHF TV. So that's fortunate for me. The last games I'll commentate at this championship. Going out on a high.
Sad violin music.
Tragedy.
Had to get that in at some point.
If you want to hear more games commentated by Chris O'Reilly, please write to EHF at
Norway, Hungary. I can't see Hungary pulling off a surprise against Norway, and I think Switzerland. Yeah, Switzerland have enjoyed themselves so far. I think a bit better than most people expected, to be honest. Maybe not in the Norway game, but
they've been.
Yeah, everyone can look terrible against Norway.
Switzerland they're playing good handball. They got beat by a better team, but they're not trying to, cut the corners, which I think is really the right way to go for them. So fair dues to Switzerland.
And their young 17-year-old Emma Neger scored her 3 lobs against Celia Solberg, fulfilling her childhood dream. Probably it's only been 2 years
still
ago.
a child.
Still a child. But it's a great interview where she got interviewed after that game, and they asked her, how does it feel playing, what was it like playing against Norway? And she was just like, all I was thinking when scoring that goal was, I can't believe I just scored against Solberg. Like, that was what was going through her mind. So
that's great.
It's an amazing moment. She's going to be a star.
What about you, Alex? What games in the final round of matches in the preliminary round are you looking forward to?
It's got to be Netherlands, France. Yeah, it's one of those kind of, let's see what these teams actually have in them. They haven't been fully tested so far. And then I think I want to see Germany again. And that a test of the two teams that have disappointed me, Germany and Spain. Which one of them will disappoint me less in that third match day and go through to the main round?
That also a potentially very important game in terms of getting to the main round. So there's still only Montenegro is through in that group. So still a lot of there's still hope for Spain in all of this, despite their losses to date. And there's going to be some drama, that's for sure. If something we've learned already in the last few days is going to be some drama, I have a feeling it could happen in Slovenia, Serbia, that's for sure. I think Germany and Spain will provide that as well. And while we have Denmark, Sweden, and France, Netherlands will be just 2 hopefully really entertaining games, and kind of like preliminary quarterfinals already. The road to the semi-final really begins in this next round because there's crucial matches there. Good to already be leading up to the medal game so early in the championship.
Yeah, we're really just getting started now. This is where it starts to gets all juicy now.
Before we go, which player has impressed you most at this championship so far?
I have a better question. If we're going to pick the MVP, if it was going to stop right now, I mean, it's the same question, but I think this just sounds...
I feel like that's exactly the same question.
No, impressed you most is very like personally. I doesn't mean I'm going to give them an award, but this is more like, okay, if you had to vote right now and the competition stopped today for whatever reason, and you had to award someone a trophy for it, who would you award as MVP? Top of my head, Georgina Jokovic.
It's a good one. What about you, Alex?
To answer Brian's question, it would probably be Cleopatra Darlot, because France have been insanely dominant and she has been insanely dominant. So that's for me.
It was a better question, wasn't it? for once.
If you're answering my question, what would the answer be?
Yeah, who impressed you most?
And to answer, who impressed me most? It's kind of tough because there's a couple of players that impressed me a lot, and then didn't have great follow-up games. So yeah, I think Yamina Roberts probably impressed me because she's been consistent in the 2 and had an insanely good second game.
I was going to use Yamina Roberts to answer Brian's question. But to answer my question, also in my group, Katrina Heindale in that second game was an absolute animal. Like she seems to be in the best physical shape of her life, and she let Serbia know it. I think that's going to really show as the tournament goes on.
A good point on Katrina Heindale's physical strength, because in a interview with TV2 that you sent us, they tested the 2 coaches of Denmark, who are Jesper Jensen and Lars Jørgensen, and tested them in their strength against the Danish women's team. They compared the coaches' strength to the players. And one of these coaches is, of course, Lars Jørgensen, who is 192 centimeters tall and 104 kilograms in weight. And the only Danish team player that was stronger than him was Heindel. So that shows you exactly how much power she has to push around and tackle and take down a few people in this tournament. So that's...
And Jesper Jensen was in which place? Do you remember?
And Jesper Jensen was in 8th place in overall compared to the team. Which he was a little bit embarrassed about.
Yeah, I hope the players are using that against him now. Like, careful, Jesper, I'll beat the shit out of you. I can bench more than you, pal. Don't tell me what to do.
Do you reckon that's why they lost? They lost the dressing room a bit. They don't respect him anymore.
Just pushing him around.
They're just like, this guy. 8. Some wingers nudging him in the back. Coming to get you.
Well, time will tell against Sweden. I think we can wrap it up there, shall we?
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Take care of yourself and au revoir.